What if a simple joke could land you with a felony charge? Well, in Arizona, it can. And all it takes is one thing: a firearm. So today, we're going to dig into what we're calling the firearm factor, this legal idea that shows how just having a gun can turn a totally harmless action into a really serious crime.
Okay, let's dive right in. But first, and this is the most important thing I'll say, this is for your information only. It is absolutely not legal advice. For your specific situation, you have to talk to a licensed attorney. Seriously.
I mean, just think about it for a second. You point your finger at your friend, you say bang, it's a joke, right? No big deal. But you do the exact same thing while you're holding a gun, you could be looking at a felony. This is the whole idea we're exploring today, how that one object just changes the entire game. So, what exactly is this firearm factor? Well, it's basically how the law sees everything differently the second a gun shows up. And to really get why, we've got to look at how the law even defines a firearm in the first place.
Okay, and this is the absolute key to it all. In Arizona, a firearm isn't just a thing. Legally, it is classified as a deadly weapon. That specific two-word classification, it changes everything. It's what triggers a whole different set of rules and much, much harsher penalties.
And get this, because this surprises a lot of people. You might think, well, an unloaded gun or a gun that's jammed isn't a threat, but the law completely disagrees. Whether it's loaded, unloaded, or even temporarily broken, it is still legally considered a deadly weapon. The law doesn't care if it can fire right now. It cares about its potential.
Okay, so if the law says any gun is a deadly weapon, what happens when you start messing around with one? Well, that's where the crime of endangerment comes in, and it's a perfect example of how fast the firearm factor can turn a dumb mistake into a felony.
Let's use a real-world example from our source material to make this crystal clear. Imagine this guy. We'll call him Birthday Boy. He's out celebrating, right? Maybe having a few drinks, and he decides it's a great time to show off his new gun. So he pulls it out and points it at his friend, not to be mean, just joking around. A terrible idea, for sure. But is it actually a crime? You bet it is. Absolutely. Even though he didn't mean to scare anyone, that one reckless move is considered endangerment, and that's a Class 6 felony. Just like that, a stupid joke turns into a charge that can follow you for life. And listen, endangerment isn't even the only thing he could be on the hook for. That same action could also get you a disorderly conduct charge. If you're handling, showing off, or firing a gun in a way that disturbs someone's peace, you could be looking at another charge entirely. So, we've talked about actions, but what about words? Well, this firearm factor is so powerful, it can turn your words into weapons too, taking a simple argument and making it a criminal threat. Think about the difference. Getting into an argument, saying some angry stuff, that's one thing. But say those exact same words while you're holding a gun, or even just gesturing toward one. Now, the law can see that as the crime of threatening and intimidating because the weapon implies you actually mean to cause harm. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the rules for actually carrying a gun, especially concealed carry. The law is really specific here, and if you mess up, it falls under something called misconduct with firearms.
Now, for anyone who carries concealed, there are two huge rules you just have to know. First, you can't be carrying a concealed weapon while you're committing another serious crime. The weapon just makes the original crime that much more severe. And second, this is vital if you ever interact with the police, you must answer truthfully if an officer asks if you are carrying. Lying about it is a crime all by itself.
So, you might be wondering, what exactly counts as concealed? It's actually pretty straightforward. The legal definition is basically this: if a regular person couldn't see the weapon with a normal glance, it's concealed. No one's expecting them to have X-ray vision. If it's out of ordinary sight, it counts. And one last big thing to remember: these rules are not universal. The law gets even tighter depending on who you are and where you are. So that leads to a super practical question, right? For anyone who carries a firearm in Arizona, where are they just off limits? Some of these are probably what you'd guess: public schools, polling places on election day. Those are no-go zones. But others are more about the situation. For example, if you're at a public event and they ask you to check your weapon and you refuse, you're breaking the law. And this should be obvious. But firing a gun at a building with people inside, that is a major, major felony. So we've covered the places. But what about the people? Who is legally not allowed to possess a firearm under any circumstances? The law has a very specific name for this, a prohibited possessor. And this isn't just a casual term, it's a formal legal status. It usually applies to someone with a prior felony conviction, and it means their right to own any deadly weapon is gone, period.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that, in the eyes of the law, a firearm changes everything. Every action, every word, every situation is judged through a different lens when a gun is in the picture. And that leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. Does your knowledge of these laws truly match the incredible responsibility that comes with them?